How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Now, Scotland put in quite a dominant performance up against Samoa earlier today and really showed what they were made of. And I want to break down this game. So please like, subscribe. It really does help the channel grow. And let's get into it. So, like I said, pretty dominant display. The Scottish were very dominant when it came down to their scrums, when it came down to their lineouts. I mean, we saw quite a few tries come from that maul action. They were very dominant in that aspect. But the biggest thing is the Scottish never let off the foot, off the gas pedal. They really kept that pressure on. Dobie played brilliantly. We had good performances from players like Ashman, Matt Fagerson, Burke. Hutchinson ended up getting himself a try as well. Cowrow with, he just played phenomenally. Honestly, I loved Reed's try as well. It was just so simple, easy work. I mean, it was that build up and it just left Reed wide open. The Samoans, they were just far too cluttered. They were just far too, what's the word for it? They were just far too central, and the Scottish, they allowed that line to be nice wide, left so much space open, and ultimately that's what ended up happening. The Scottish came through, kept the pressure on, and made the most out of the Samoans' mistakes. Unfortunately for Samoa, they made quite a few mistakes. I mean, Scotland played them all round. I mean, we take a look at the stats. So 7 tries, 3 conversions. Obviously, that needs a lot of work. I could tell it's going to be one of those days from the first try. 139 carries, 10 line breaks, 12 turnovers lost, 9 turnovers won, 54% possession, and 164 tackles. To Samoa, which was, yes, they did manage to bag themselves 2 tries, 1 conversion, but that was late on in the second half. They did really start to connect better, Samoa. They started to become a little bit more dangerous, but ultimately too little too late. They couldn't keep up that consistency, which Scotland did throughout the entire game. They had moments of brilliance, they had moments of danger, which they did capitalize on. A couple steals here and there, which allowed them to break, but they just didn't have the legs. They didn't, the Scottish were all over them, making the most out of any single mistake. And that's what they did. They did absolutely brilliant. I mean, we look at Cowrow with 13 carries, Gregor Brown, 2 turnovers, 1. I mean, Cowrow just had one of those games today. He was just on it. He was on it. And he really made the Samoans, sweat quite a lot. I mean, we look at Benjamin Nini, who he ended up getting the first try for Samoa on the 50th minute, but he also bagged himself 20 tackles for the game. He really had to work his backside off. They were on the back foot constantly. That there's not much that they really could have done. The Scottish outplayed them in attack, in defense. Yes, the Samoans were slightly quicker to the rucks, but complete scrum dominance, 100% win, 11 scrums and a line-out win percentage 100%, whereas the Samoans had 6 scrums and 87% line-out win. So yeah, there was a big change. I mean, we look into the attacking stats: 169 passes, 139 ball carries, post-contact meters, 55. Now, on a general basis, that's actually pretty low. Like, when we're looking at the Springboks, when we're looking at the All Blacks, we talking in numbers of 200, 300, 400 meters post-contact. Where this is actually pretty low. So you can tell how this game kind of went. Not a lot of players were necessarily going in for contact. They weren't looking for the contact and trying to push, but they still outplayed them in that. But the biggest one is the line breaks. Samoans 4 line breaks to the Scottish 10. That kind of shows where this game went. right? So ultimately, the Scottish just made more. They made the most out of what they had. In terms of penalties conceded, they were roughly the same. Samoa with 9, Scotland with 8. But what was done with it? What was done with the ball? They were dangerous. They were, whenever someone got on the ball, something was happening. You could feel that Scotland were dangerous. Now, Samoa is a completely different test to Fiji, right? Completely different ball game. Fiji, they're not necessarily the best defensively, but in terms of going forward, they are very scary, which is why at points they put Scotland under a lot of pressure, and why we ended up seeing Fiji beat Scotland. But this is a good moment for a lot of players, for Scotland to be getting games under their belt. I mean, when you have players like Hutchinson, who's brilliant for the Saints, getting game time, Reed, Stain, Rowe, getting more game time, getting them fit, whilst a lot of players are on the for the Lions. But it's also nice seeing players like Rory Dodge, Gilchrist, Matt Fagerson, getting in those game times, getting in that repetition, because once the Lions tour is finished and everyone starts coming back, these players are going to be ready. They're going to be fit, and hopefully they're going to be playing some brilliant rugby in preparation, for everything later on in the year. So this is a strong Scotland side. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, they are missing players like Finn Russell, who is an iconic player for them. But same thing you can say for Tui Pelutu, Hugh Jones, big players that Scotland are missing. So you got to take these results with a pinch of salt. Same thing with Fiji. You can't read too much into it with Fiji beating a weakened Scotland. But it's going to be interesting. A lot of these players are, getting themselves into form, and I think we're going to be seeing a very, very strong Stain and Rowe for for the upcoming games. So let me know what you guys think. I thought this was a pretty dominant display from the Scottish. I was expecting a win like this. Samoa aren't necessarily the best defensively, and when they are met with a team that puts on the pressure the way Scotland does, they crumble, and they did today. But like I say, they did have moments of genius, moments of brilliance, but it wasn't enough to stop the Scottish. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Please like and subscribe as always, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.